Hey everybody, and welcome back to the bunker. Tonight we're going to be continuing on painting some Han Solo. So I'm going to dive right in. So this is what we have done so far. Last episode we covered a lot of the face, did a little bit of the cloak. Still a lot to do, but he's coming along pretty good. He's facing out pretty good. So we're going to actually start with his pants and go down to his boots and then up to his blaster, and then we'll start doing some washing. So here we go. So for his pants, I'm gonna do a little mix of Rhinox hide and steel Legion drab. 50-50 basically, just to kind of get a tone a little bit different than his actual cloak, which is 100% steel Legion. So I'm just gonna get that added to my wet palette and get it all mixed up. Never paint from the pot, I always paint on a wet palette because it makes life a little bit easier. Also blending is really nice too when you have one. So a little thing that I do is I use, and I mentioned this in the last video as well, I actually use Liquitex Flow-Aid. I put a little bit onto my palette and transfer it a little bit by little bit into the paint as I need it. It just breaks the surface tension, makes the paint go on a little bit smoother. Helps with the thinning a little bit. So I just like to keep a little bit of that on my palette. I'll pull from it as I need. I should probably give you a view of what I'm doing here, just so you know. Alright, so I have my Steel Legion Drab and my Rhinox hide, and I'm just taking a little bit of Flow-Aid. I'm just kind of trying to get a mid-tone here, just not quite as dark as Rhinox hide, but I don't want to go as light as Steel Legion Drab, just because, yeah, you don't want it to blend in too much. But it's going to be more towards the Rhinox side, but it looks things so far. Okay, once we have that mixed, we're going back over to the model. I will be adjusting the camera a little bit here, just bear with me and get a nice little angle. So we need to go back a little bit this way. Still getting used to the camera angles here. There we are, nice solid Han here. So yeah, we're just going to be adding this base color to the entire pants, leaving the stripe here blank because it's going to be going more of a shade of yellow. We're going to be applying, of course, in multiple thin coats to get the perfect consistency. brush is pretty on the brink, so I'll be replacing it really soon. I've been painting with it nonstop for about a year now. But this brush is fantastic, so I love it. So as you can see, I'm leaving the stripe here in the middle of the pants natural white because I will be doing almost like a yellow with that. Something like a chocolate brown here. Pretty good tone of brown. Works out really well. And back here is actually where the flow aid really comes in handy, and behind. Sometimes when you're spraying the primer and you miss a spot, so the paint doesn't necessarily take too well. Flow aid definitely helps with that. It makes it kind of stick a little bit better. It's also a very awkward place to paint. Right into the groin. Just lightly go over this again. I'll be highlighting this, so we'll get to that eventually. Looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do So while that's a little bit wet still, the flow weight helps it dry a little bit slower. I'm going to take a little bit of Steel Legion Drab and I'm just going to highlight a little bit here. And I'm using brush cleaner between pretty much every color and sometimes halfway between as well. It makes my brush last a lot longer. Alright, so you'll see, you can kind of see here that we have a few little raised sections here. So I'm just going to take some pure Steel Legion Drab, mix it a little bit in with the brown, but I'm going to go for a lighter tone because I don't want it to blend in too much, but I'm going to kind of go for like an in-between tone. I'm going to go really thin with this too because I'm just blending it. I'm just going to gently highlight. Be very subtle, but a good job done. Mostly on the more raised areas. I'm going to blend this back and forth too. So pull from a little bit from the darker colors. Go back and forth here just to kind of get a nice blend. So very subtle, but it's a natural highlight, so it'll do for now. We're still going to be washing it and highlighting later down the road. Just to get the base coating done now, I'm going to move into the boots. For the boots, what I usually do for most of my boots is straight model color, German gray. I find the model color gives it a really matte tone, looks really good on the boots. But big thing of model color when you're working with these kind of models is you really want to make sure you seal the model when you're done, because it does rub off a little bit. It's not quite as durable as some of the other paints out there. Same thing goes, adding a little bit of that flow weight to the German gray. It's actually a really thick paint, so helps to thin it out a little bit more. Have your two thin coats. And I overly thin this a little bit too, because I like to get a little bit of the zenithal highlighting through on the boots, just to kind of give it that extra little bit of tonality. So if you tune into the last episode, you'll notice that my main camera kind of died on me about an hour in, So I'm being mindful this time around. We'll only be streaming until that camera dies this time around. I do have the actual part on the way now to actually give me pretty much a full day's worth of battery life out of it, but for now we kind of have to take what we're given, I guess. So here it is. Just want to keep this going as long as I can. When I work with darker colors, I make sure I wash my brush more often because those darker colors do dry pretty quickly, and they cause problems with the brush if you're not mindful of it. And onto the other boot. The cloak makes it a little awkward to get into the weird places, but having this grip definitely makes it a little bit easier. If you wonder where it came from, it's just a simple 3D printed grip. If you want one like it and don't have access to 3D printing, the Citadel grip is actually really good for what it is. I plan on picking up one of the weird arm grips eventually for assembly, because I really like it personally. A lot of people don't like it, but I think it's a great idea, especially if you're assembling those really weird build models that kind of fall apart easily. Having a little assembly grip is nice. So he looks pretty flat right now other than his face, but he's coming along. He's getting there. Still have to do the underside of his boot here, but we're getting there. We're getting there, you know. It's not about the finished project. It's about just painting and relaxing while you're painting. That was such a Bob Ross thing, I'm sorry. Right, so a little further back just to get the focus here. It's definitely coming along. It's still looking super flat, but we're getting there. We have the tone on there now. Alright, so we're going to do something kind of silly here. So, on the actual stripe itself, on the pants, we're not going to do a straight tone with it. What we're going to do is we're going to go straight steel leads and drab on it here first, just to kind of create a base coat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fine liner and I'm just going to line on the yellow and stripes to kind of give it that look. Very important here, where we're doing a little bit of detail work, to use the edge of the brush rather than the tip. make sure we have every little bit of white, because where I primed white, it's a little less forgiving than you mentioned black priming. As you can see, my brush is in fairly hard shape right now. Not amazing. But I'm making the best of it, because sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, so now we have that standard little brown stripe. What we're gonna do, so we're gonna bring that out a little. So we're going to switch over to a fine detail brush. I'm going to use a bit of Girl Yellow. And what we're going to do here is just create a few stripes on the stripe, just to make it look a little more standout. Again, a little bit of flow aid. I love that stuff. And we're just going to try to brush off a lot, but leave a little bit of paint on there. I'm just gonna add lines. Make sure there's a little bit of paint on your brush when you're doing this, because the transfer is very light. And I am going to go over this with a little bit of earth shade later, just to tone it down a little bit. And I am going to edge highlight it. You don't necessarily have to do this step either. You can just leave it tan, because tan looks pretty good too. So you can see we got a little bit of a stripey on the go here now. On the belt, we're going to start off with a base of straight Rhinox hide, and we're going to actually do the details in a gunmetal. So I already have the Rhinox hide on there, nice darker brown. Get your start. But then we'll actually go over to a gunmetal color, which I'll show you in a little bit, just to get the details out. Yeah, he's starting to look like Han now. So that's pretty good. This is really going to be noticeable, but there is a strap on his lower leg there, which I am going to match up with the belt because that's his blaster holster. Here we are. Base coats are coming along pretty nicely. Alright, so gonna grab us some gunmetal here. And this is literally Vallejo Ear Game Ear gunmetal. So I use airbrush paint all the time with a brush. I really like it myself. I mean, I paint pretty thin anyway, so airbrush paint is pretty much pre-thinned. That's one way to look at it. Oh, and my tip is a little bit dried on this one. Wow, I haven't used it in a while, I guess. There we go. It's not too bad. Oh, I just lost a lot of it. Happens. It's all good. It's okay. I've got an extra container of that, so it's all good. Also, Flow8 is amazing with metallics. So I'm going to do the metallics on the belt with straight gunmetal. Going to highlight them later with a more of a silver. There we go. This belt is looking pretty base coated. It's pretty good. You guys have been pretty quiet in chat here tonight. How's everyone going tonight? How's everyone doing? Now, I'm going to do East Blaster. I'm going to base coat it with a gunmetal, but then I'm going to dry brush it later with a metallic, and I'll show you that when I get there. Little magic that I use for blasters and guns and such. And I'm going really thin on the metallic on the blaster, because then highlighting will kick in with the white and it'll look good. I'm doing pretty good. I had a pretty good day. Next 2 days off, with the exception of a few like side projects I'm working on, but I can't complain. Yeah, Han's a really fun model to paint so far, I gotta say. I like doing the Rebels a lot more than I like doing the Imperials. I find the Imperials are very cookie cutter, where the Rebels you can do a bit more with them. Hoping to get some games in with him relatively soon, so I'd like to get him actually painted up and on the table. Just want to check in with you. How's my quality? Do you are you finding the video quality good? Yeah, last time if you tuned in for the second half, I kind of ran into some camera trouble, so I had to use a kind of a cheap webcam. I'm back to using my actual Alpha 6000 now, so quality is going to be a lot better here this time around. I do have some more equipment coming in, so my audio quality will be better soon, as well as when my lights arrive, the lighting will be better again as well. So excellent. Excited to grow this up a little bit and make it a lot of fun. Have some fun with it. Feel free to let me know too if there's any particular things you'd like to see painted, or techniques, or even any little like tips and tricks you'd like to know. I like to kind of keep active in the community and keep the chat going. Alright, so that's the blaster. So get that base coat going. Nice little heavy metallic gunmetal on there. Really like that Vallejo gunmetal. It's a really good tone for metal. Also, if you miss anything, I do post the videos up to my YouTube channel afterwards, so you can watch them and pause them or rewind them then, so it's a little bit easier to follow along, I know that. Alright, time to do a little bit of shadowing. So, I'll keep the lead stuff going. I have, on my shelf right now, I have some, so I have another set of Fleet Troopers to paint. I have Boba Fett to paint still, and I'm painting Imperials for a friend of mine, so I have a couple E-Webs, a couple sets of Snow Troopers, and a set of Scout Troopers left there. And I still have a little bit of work to do on my Commandos, so there's a good bit of stuff left to go for Legion, and I'm expecting to get some more now soon. Got to keep that backlog alive, you know. And okay, so shading, classic Agrax shade. I'm going to be using this for most of it. Here comes the liquid talent, as they say. E-webs are going to be fun because I can literally just take the actual blaster out to the airbrush and blast it with the gunmetal, and then just bring it in and dry brush it the way I'm going to do the blaster now in a bit. I'm really excited to get Wookiees, to be honest with you. Wookiees are... I love painting fur and that kind of thing. Alright, so I'm going to start off by washing his hair. And I'm going to kind of go over a lot of stuff too, just to kind of bring out the details. And I don't want to go too much on the brush. Hopefully I'll have some actual like background music in stream too. That's something I'm working on as well. I know it's a little bit quiet here just listening to my voice. Right, hair's already looking infinitely better. What I'm going to do here now is for the inner shirt, I'm going to go a little light. And what I'm going to do is take out, where is it here? I do have it. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to use straight flow aid because it works the exact same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of flow aid into my wash to kind of thin it down. That way it's not going to give me such a strong of a tone when I'm doing the actual inners, the inner cloak, or the inner shirt. So if you notice, it's actually going to give me much more of a mild tone. I really just wanted to define more so than anything else. So. Lamian's really good. I used it for a long time. I find if you're going to be doing a lot of quantity with it, like if you're going to be doing, let's say your commandos, if you're going to be thinning wash on 5 to 6 models at one time, don't do too much of it at the same time. I find it starts to form a gel when you mix it with the Earthshade. I find the flow aid's a little bit better because it's not going to cause the paint to gel. But Lamian is definitely an important tool in my toolbox. Really good for glazes as well. Shaky, shaky, shaky. Now I'm going to do something that I hate doing and actually pulling wash directly from the pot. Pray for me that I don't spill it because that would be a disaster. So I'm actually going back to my fine detail brush again if it goes in focus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of Earthshade out and I'm just going to kind of detail the cloak. So I did a little bit of wet blending on the cloak already to give it a little bit of tone. But the biggest thing now is going to be that line down the middle, for example. Just want to define that a little bit. Well, if you notice, my Earthshade is half empty. Let's just say I never actually use that much black or brown wash. There may or may not have been a spill or two. I'm just going back over this now to clean it up a little bit. And actually, you know what? I don't like this that much, so I'm actually going to go over the entire cloak. And then I'll highlight afterwards. So, go back to a bigger brush again. Sometimes it's about trial and error, so I got to try it, see if it worked. Didn't, so adapt. Yeah, that's much better. Just make sure it doesn't pool at the bottom. That's the biggest thing about washes. Get over the entire cloak with wash. Bringing out the highlights a little bit, shading up the shadows. Fun times overall. Just gonna check on my battery. And I'm about half gone, so I still have lots of time left on this battery yet, so I can stream for a little while yet. Wet palettes definitely changed the way I paint. Humidifier, I mean, it can help, especially if you're in a really dry climate. So, looks really gross right now because it's wet, and I gotta watch for those pools right here, because I hate pooling. Just do up underneath the cloak. Don't worry about going a little bit heavy underneath, because, yeah. Highly recommend the Masterson State Wet Palette. If you're in Canada, you can get it at Michael's for about 15 bucks. Fantastic. Now on the pants, I am going over the yellow as well, because I do want that to be toned down a little bit by the earth shade. So you'll notice the pre-shading I did, or pre-highlighting I did earlier, does actually pay off a little bit there. I've heard a lot of good things about that method actually, because I mean the Stay Wet palette that's basically what it is. I switched from a heavy body paper over to a parchment paper myself, but it's basically as a sponge in a pot. So I mean, there's no real difference if you already have it set up. I like to be a little bit of a realist when it comes to that kind of stuff. You don't necessarily need to go out and spend a pile of money to get the best stuff. There we go. A little bit darker on the inner cloak here. There we go. It's not bad. Add a little bit of Nuln Oil for the boots. Shaky, shaky, shaky. With the German gray that I gave, with the Nuln Oil, you're actually going to get a little bit of tonality out of it. Normally if you paint black and then use Nuln Oil, it doesn't really do much. But going with that dark gray, it creates almost like a blue-black tone to give you a nice defined look when you actually add the wash. Alright, so we're going to have to give that a few minutes to dry before we start some highlighting. So I'm just going to get some highlighting ready to go. So I'm going to take a quick little 2-minute break here, and when I come back we're actually going to work on the highlighting a little bit. I'm not going too heavy with this because I'm fairly happy with the results already, but we'll just do some highlighting, make it look a little bit better. Be right back. And I'm back. So, while we're waiting for the wash to dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I achieve a nice little metal look. And it's a little secret that I have. You're going to laugh at this, but this brush here is an e.l.f. concealer brush. So, as you can see, it's the perfect dry brush. Nice thick bristles, really bunched close together. It's going to give you the perfect dry brushing. And what I do is, this is a little magical compound here. Necron compound. Don't need to shake it because it's almost like a clump. It's like pretty dry already. So I'm just going to take a little bit of it. Don't need a whole lot. Don't even need my palette for it. Gonna dry most of it off in my paper towel, and literally just lightly try a little bit more because I still have too much on there. Yeah, they actually they make an actual Citadel makes a full series of paints. It's literally just dry brushing paint. Uh, I have two of them. The other one I use a lot is Phyrexia White. Same thing goes. It's pretty much almost like a moistened dry compound, but it works phenomenally for creating detail on anything. I use the white one more so for weathering effects and stuff like that. And I'll show you an example before I get off stream. So yeah, as you can see, really brought out the detail in the gun. I'll likely add some null noil to that now before I'm finished with it. So the other thing I need to do is do that with the belt, but I have to be very careful because parts on the belt are really small. So I'm going to be really gentle here. I'm going to give it a feel like going over. I'm actually going to take that a step further. And I'm going to use a little bit of, oh, come on and give me some focus here. Vallejo Chainmail Silver. Tiny, 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 tiny bit of this on a detail brush. Just do some edge highlighting on the belt because the dry brushing is just too small for it. So, chainmail is a very interesting paint to work with. I love it and I hate it, but it's really good for highlighting. Yeah, if you wanted to use Stormhost Silver, that's the closest thing. I just never actually got out to get Stormhost. I'd probably prefer that myself, just because it has a bit better of a opacity. It's a little bit more dense, where the Chainmail Silver is more of a, I don't know, it doesn't give me like amazing coverage, I find. It's more so of like a highlighting tone for me. But yeah, Stormhost Silver is literally pretty much the exact same color. Alright, so now that it's starting to dry here, I'm going to start doing a little bit of highlighting. I'm going to go, like I said before, I'm going to go very, very, very light on the highlighting here because I'm fairly happy with the results already. So what I'm going to do is just going to go over the raised sections here with like a kind of a 50-50 of the steel lesion drab and Rhine oxide, just to kind of create a light look here. Just crank this light a little bit higher here so you can see what I'm doing. So you'll see on the pants, I'm going to push these highlights a little bit further yet. And I'm going more steel legion now, but I'm just doing it on the edges just to kind of bring out the highlights a bit more. Right. You can kind of see here, but I've been pushing the highlights up on the pants here, just to get the details show up a little bit more. And at this point I'm basically using pure steel legion drab. So I'm just going to pull that up here and start working on the cloak. I'm calling it a cloak, but it was more of like a coat. Painting way too much fantasy lately. Now I'm going to do a thing. The undervest, I use kind of a weird mix. Kind of mixed. I can't remember now exactly what it was. I'm pretty sure it was one of my blues here. I think it was my... Oh yes, it was my turquoise. My game color turquoise. And I mixed it in with the German gray a little bit to get the darker vest color. And actually I'm going to need a little bit of that now because I need to highlight. And the other thing I'm going to need is dead white, which is a pure white. So Thanks. Yeah, it ended up a little more natural to like the episode 4 vibe that I really wanted to go for on that one. I like the. I recommend if you are looking at a white paint, go with a Vallejo paint over a Citadel paint because I have had terrible, terrible luck when it comes to Citadel white. Everything's all dried up. I don't know. Those pots are interesting. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just going to thin down a little bit of that turquoise, and I'm just going to highlight the edge of that cloak, just to, or of his vest, just to get that extra little bit of detail out. Don't be afraid of edge highlighting, because it's going to really make that model pop. Now what I'm going to do is going to add a little bit of that dead white to the Steel Legion drab and create like a lighter brown tone to highlight the outer cloak a little bit more. I also like the dropper bottles a lot more. Let you measure out paint a bit more. And its quality of life on airbrushing is amazing. So really pulling up that highlight on the cloak here. And by cloak, I mean coat. I will call it a coat going forward. I'm going to call it a cloak again. You know I'm going to call it a cloak again. Everyone does. If you feel like your hand is unsteady, I highly recommend picking up a grip. Makes edge highlighting a lot easier. And just remember, with a wet palette, you can always go back and wet blend back down to the original tone. So try not to worry about it too much. It's easy to fix. I'd like to see some of your work. So you'll see that I'm adding a lot of definition here to the cloak. Or, see, I call it a cloak again. I told you I would. To the coat. C-O-A-T, coat. To the coat. It is called a coat. Are you part of the Legion Discord by chance? It's a really good community. Don't be afraid to post anything up on there. The critique there will make you a better painter. I love being part of communities because communities help you grow. A little bit lighter on his hair too. Alright. Not going to push it too hard. I think that's exactly where I want to be, so I think I'm going to call that model itself done. How's my battery? 24 minutes. Cool. Let's give it a good look. There we go. So we got a good bit of detail here. The face looks alright. Some pretty good detailing on the cloak itself. The coat itself. I did it again. On the back, didn't go too crazy. Wanted to look a little bit dirty. And then if you look closely, it's a little dark, but you can kind of see the highlighting on the pants and that little bit of extra on the blaster. And I went over the hair a little bit more on top there to kind of give it a little bit more tone, but I'm not going to go too heavy with it. So yeah, let's call that one done. And you'll actually notice that on the pants where I did the yellow, there are lines that actually work out really well. Excellent. I'm happy with that one. So as far as the base goes, I'm not going to do the base on stream because there's a lot of, the way I do bases, there's about 5 steps and each one needs about 20 hours to dry. So I'll likely be uploading an individual video for that, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to call it there now before my battery dies. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time, hopefully sooner and soon as I can. I can't really guarantee an exact time yet, but I know I will be painting on stream again within the next week. Thanks for watching.